So how much time do you have? You're looking great, by the way.
And I'm super hungover, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, I went out last night for the first time in like 2 weeks. I went out and got super drunk, so.
Well, you look good.
Oh, really? All right,
Real
that's
good.
That's good.
Oh, you got the socks.
Yeah, well, I only had one on.
I finally read the introduction to my book that your assistant,
yeah.
I mean, you wrote.
Right.
And in it, you mentioned that I had made you meet for the first time, that we met at Del Taco.
Yeah, I remember the exact Del Taco, actually.
And in the introduction, you suggested that I had not paid for the lunch, that I forced you to pay for the lunch. About a year ago, I went there and I got, it's the Culver City, and I got you the,
Oh, nice.
I got you the taco. I haven't.
Oh, you know what? That actually sounds really good.
It's, I've been carrying it around ever since.
Really? Yeah, it's pretty cold.
So, can we talk while,
Yeah, of course.
while we do this?
Yeah.
Excellent, great. I got a couple of beautifully organized questions for you. And the Matt Stone and Trey Parker of 1996, what would they think about the Trey Parker and Matt Stone of 2007?
I remember driving around in Matt's really crappy pickup that was like 15 years old. And whenever we would drive around LA and we'd see someone pull up in a really nice car talking on a cell phone, which we didn't have either, Matt would usually roll down his window and say something like, "Nice car, fag." And basically just could, you know, that's that. And basically, so I know that if we had driven, like, because now I've seen Matt plenty of times. He drives a BMW and he talks on his cell phone constantly while driving around his BMW. So I think those guys would roll down their windows and yell something at us that wasn't nice.
Excellent. Your film in 1996, how does that look today? In other words, how does the film look to you today? You know, it's basically, you know, a student film, I take it.
Yeah, it was
what
a
do you
student
and
film.
Matt think about it?
Cannibal was a student film. It was basically a thesis film. And it was just sort of a film where I was actually engaged back then. I was only 22, and I was engaged to get married, which just seems so ridiculous now. But when she sort of broke my heart, it basically just I was like, I'm going to make a feature film, you know, and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. And we kind of got together. We talked about how we could do it, how we could raise, you know, the money. And, you know, we never really thought we could pull it off, but we did. And now looking back at it, it's just hysterical because we look like we're kids, you know, we're just kids, you know, that don't know what we're doing.
Did you actually go to film school, or was it a real film school? Or
we were in film school. I mean, we were at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and great taco.
It's 2 years old.
Yeah, it's really held up well. We were at the University of Colorado in Boulder, which was, you know, it's a big school, and their film department was not big. It was sort of a new thing, the film production department there, and so it was only probably 25 students in that whole part of it. So it was just this kind of small thing, and my parents wouldn't really they wouldn't pay for college if I was just going to film school because they didn't think it would be very lucrative. So I had to do another major as well. And I actually started off as a music major, and then I switched to film and Japanese.
So you in terms of these songs and Cannibal the Musical, you had a fair amount of musical training then.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's really that was my passion, was music, and that's really what I thought I wanted to do. And then, you know, the reason I went to the film school and started taking classes there was because I thought I could do songs for movies, or you know, do even soundtracks, you know, do scores. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought I was going to maybe try to get into, which is why when we decided to make a movie, I was like, well, it's got to be musical, because that's what I really like doing.
Did you kind of study the musical?
Yeah, well, I knew musical, and it wasn't even, you know, at the time I wasn't studying them. It was just as a kid I just loved musicals, so I would watch all that I could, you know, and go to, which was hard to do in the mountains of Colorado, to see anything live. So it was always on VHS usually, or done by our little community playhouse, you know, which is the way I saw a lot of musicals. But, you know, I just sort of knew the formula, you know. It's like you need a big song here, and, you know, it wasn't every how many minutes, you know, should go by before a song, but it's sort of like, here's emotionally where they're going to be. There should, you know, it was obvious they should do a song where they all sing about what they want, because that's something you need in the movie anyway. And it was really important to me that I knew even then, which I, you know, have always stuck by, if you can take a song out of the movie, then it shouldn't be there. The song should move the story forward, and you should need that song to hear either, you know, it should be a moment in the movie that's important.
You mentioned you had seen movies on video cassette. You chose to film this on celluloid rather than the hot new format of DV or whatever you call it?
When we made Cannibal, it was 1992, and so there was only video, normal video. There was no HD. I'm sure if we were doing it today, we'd be shooting it HD. I assume. In fact, it was sort of the first. What we were lucky in was that it was the early 90s was also the time where Avids, the editing systems, the digital editing systems, sort of came to places like Denver. There was like I think 2 in all of Denver. And we got our hands on one, and we're like, what is this thing? And everyone in Colorado was like, we don't know, but we're afraid of it. And so I remember that Matt and I and Jason just spent a bunch of days reading the manual and learned how to run an Avid. And that's what we cut, the whole movie on.
Trauma is kind of famous for having missed opportunities. What happened with us and the pilot for...
Oh, the South Park thing?
Yeah, why your pilot, you showed it to us, and I remember loving it. What happened?
It all started when we made this cartoon, The Spirit of Christmas.
Right.
But the truth is, we actually had made another Spirit of Christmas when we were in college, and you saw that one, the original, and
so
and it was also at the time where we that was just one of many things we had, and it was the only animated thing we had, and we're like, yeah, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, or whatever. And then we made the second Spirit of Christmas, and it went fast. I mean, it was like all of a sudden we made that in December, and by February, every TV station wanted it.
There was something about the music too. Was there some issue about music in the pilot?
That's what it was. You know what? I remember now. You wanted to put Spirit of Christmas on the DVDs of Cannibal. Because we did the second Spirit of Christmas. When we did it, it was really hot, really fast. And so you wanted to figure out a way to market that DVD. This is just the short, the Spirit of Christmas, the 5-minute one. Because we didn't make that, we only made that animation for ourselves. We didn't make it. We weren't thinking of it as a show at the time. So we just took a Mel Torme music thing, and we just it was just Mel Torme music whatever cues we needed, and it was all mixed in with our voices, and it was impossible to mix down. So it was basically you couldn't have legally done it because there was all these copyright infringements. And actually, it's interesting because 3 days ago, Torme's estate approved all the music on Spirit of Christmas.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which he never did, but then, he died.
Probably never gave you this magnificent tome. But you and Matt were kind enough to do an interview of Make Your Own Damn Movie.
Right.
On the set of Team America.
Right.
And you mentioned in the interview with me, I asked you what's next for Trey and Matt, and maybe you guys were fucking with me, but you said, we've had enough. We're gonna just have kids, and our kids will play with each other, and that'll be it.
Yeah, that's.
Were you fucking with me? Or
no,
is there some truth to that?
we truly believed that because Team America was the darkest time in our life. I mean, it was not fun. I mean, there were little pieces here and there that were really fun, but it was like for the most part, it was enormous amounts of stress. Nothing worked, and millions and millions of dollars that you're in charge of, and it was just nothing. Puppets we would learn cannot do anything. So it was basically. We were just like, wow, this kind of stress. I mean, and we were working 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, and it was killing us. It really was. And so we're just like, okay, no more movies. But now it's been a year and a half, and we're already talking about the next movie.
No, good.
So.
And thanks to you, I think a lot of the great, in fact, I would say the best American satire owes it all to you. It's a TV show, but it's probably the best entertainment. Family Guy. What do you think about that? Talk about satire.
It takes a lot to do a TV show. I know that, and good for them because a lot of people love it, so they're doing something right. There's plenty of room for more shows, and we're all about it. It's just that for some reason, because we're animated and they're it just bothers me when people are like, oh yeah, you guys and Family Guy. It's South Park and Family Guy. Those are the they're basically when we get compared to Family Guy. That's when I get bummed out. We get very much into the writing of a show. In watching Family Guy, we've really seen that all the jokes in that show are interchangeable. You could put jokes from this show into that show and jokes from this show into that. And that's just kind of, I hate to say it, but it's just lazy writing, really. And so I have nothing against if people love it, then it works, and that's great, and good for them, and more power to them. I just don't like being compared to them.
How would you have changed your career path if you went back into time?
It's my thing I think about often is, because the only thing I ever wonder if I regret, I have to think about whether I regret it or not, was doing Baseketball. That was the only thing we did where you know, we didn't write it and we didn't direct it. We just acted in it, and we did it right as South Park was coming out. So we didn't even think South Park. We thought, okay, well, we did those 6 episodes. It probably won't get picked up for another season. So now what do? We need money. And then we got offered to act in this movie, and we're like, oh, okay, you know, that we'll get some money there. We didn't get much. When I see the list of stuff, you know, and it's basically like Cannibal, Orgasmo, you know, South Park, Team America, and Baseketball, I'm just like, because it's like sometimes I'll go to video stores and it'll be like, you know, the Trey Parker films, and it'll have Baseketball there, and I'm just like, no, that's not my film. That's a Zucker Brothers film, you know, and it's like, and you know, so sometimes I think, wow, I wish I wouldn't have done that movie, but then I have to stop and think about how much I learned from doing that movie, because we really did. Both Matt and I, that was the first studio movie we were ever even around, and we were able to, because David Zucker is a great guy, he really let us in on everything, and we were learning stuff, watching him deal with the studio. Oh, this is what the marketing department tries to do your movie while you're shooting, and you know, this is how a big Hollywood movie works. So it really actually, more than anything, it got the South Park movie to be made the way we wanted to make it, because David taught us from the beginning how to fight the studio and say, no, we're not doing that, we're doing this what we want to do. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think, well, I wish I could take that off the, you know, the list of Trey Parker films, but then I think, well, maybe the other ones wouldn't be there if it weren't for that, so.
One of your episodes talks about independent cinema, that all independent films are about gay cowboys eating pudding.
Yeah, and that was 10 years ago we said that.
Now, you guys are pre-cog or something.
Yeah, we totally knew it. We called it. But then when suddenly someone came and said, hey, you know, there's this new movie out, it's gay cowboys, and I was like, are they eating pudding? Because I'll sue them. And I haven't seen it yet, but I have a good suspicion that there's probably some pudding eating in that movie.
One would say that you all have said some pretty strong things in your work. What was the thing with the Scientology with Tom Cruise had to hide in the closet?
Yeah, he wouldn't come out of the closet.
So have you guys ever been sued for any of this stuff?
No, we've got great lawyers. Like with the Scientology episode, I came up with that joke of just like, Tom Cruise should lock himself in the closet, literally, and he won't come out, and then everyone comes to try to get him out of the closet. And we called the lawyers, and we're like, okay, what exactly can we and can't we do? And they're very good at like, okay, this sentence, you can say this, but you need to put that in there, you know, and it was like, we have a good time, you know, we knew we were covered, like tons of lawyers had seen it before it went out, and they're like, yeah, he can't sue you for that. So it's basically like, you know, we don't just do whatever we want and hope we don't get sued. We do actually, you know, because Comedy Central has to too. They don't want to get sued for millions of dollars. So they, you know, they're on it from the beginning. I remember it was that we're going to do a Scientology episode, and then Tom Cruise was just going to show up and be just flamboyantly gay, just obviously gay, and be like, hey fella, let's go, okay, sweet. You know, it was just like, you know, that was the joke. And then the lawyers said, well, you can't do that. You can make him flamboyant, but you can't say he's gay. And we're like, well, but the joke is that he's, you know, just outwardly gay. And they're like, you can't say he's gay, you know, and then we're like, well, okay, but what if he really does just lock himself in a closet and won't come out? You know what I mean? So it's always like playing with what you can't do that makes it fun. Getting around what we can't get away with, you know.
Getting back to Cannibal the Musical, the courtroom dialogue in Cannibal the Musical seems like pretty real.
Actually, a lot of the courtroom dialogue came from the courtroom dialogue of that case. They had a lot of it written down.
Of the Alfred Packer case?
Yeah, of the Alfred Packer case. And so when I was reading about it, you know, when I was writing the script, there was several good books on the Packer case, and so I remember a couple of the books had full-on transcriptions of everything, and it was good because since my dad was playing the judge and he can't act, it was good that he just had a piece of paper in front of him that, you know, what they really said.
What about Stan Brakhage now? What was your relationship with him? I mean,
yeah, it was funny because we were there in the film school. There's 2 parts of the CU film school, and one was production and one was film theory. There was a lot of the film teachers who thought basically, you're not here to make movies, you're here to learn about movies, right? And so they were kind of at war, these 2 schools. And Stan, you know, taught theory, and because he didn't really, I don't think he really knew much production to teach, and so he just taught film theory. And so we actually never took any classes from him because we weren't into that. We didn't really care about, we just wanted to make stupid fart movies, you know, and stuff like that. It was really cool because we didn't have a whole lot of interaction with him until we said, hey, we got this money, we're gonna go out and shoot a movie, and you know, this is the script and whatever, and it was going around. We really, not from the production teachers, but the theory teachers were all like, you shouldn't be doing this. We didn't get support from them at all. it was only Stan Brakhage was like, good for you guys. And Stan like totally was into it. He's like, go do it, you know, do it now. And I remember there was actually a time where it looked like part of the money was, or something messed up, and we're like, you know, I guess it looks like now we're gonna wait a month, and Stan was like, no, go do it now. And we were like, really? He's like, yeah, and he was right. Now I knew it's like, you've got the momentum now. You put it off a month, it's like putting off a wedding for a month. You'll probably never get married, you know? It's basically like, just go do it, you know?
We had a party at the Hustler Club. I don't know if you remember it, but you and Michael Bay were in the same room together. Have you all ever been together? What does he think about?
I don't think I've ever spoken to Michael Bay, but he seems to. I've seen him out a few times, and he does seem like the cheesiest guy in the world. Like just a big cheese dick. You know, he's just like My favorite time was he was working out. And, you know, a lot of actors will wear baseball hats when they work out, trying to be, you know, not seen, although it actually draws more attention to you. But he had this baseball hat on like this, and it said, Bay. On the hat. And, it's just like, and so the best part was that some other friends of ours saw him working out. They just started talking about Team America. And I think they were actually talking about it before they realized he was there. But they were saying, that movie was sweet, and da-da-da. I don't even think they said anything specifically about him. But they're like, yeah, that movie's fine, blah, 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 blah. And then Michael Bay just got up and went, assholes! And walked away. It was just like the biggest cheese dick thing to do in the world, you know? It's like 4th grade.
There seems to be a trend now to remake movies and to go back and change them. And
the only thing the only thing I think you can do, it would be really funny. We had the idea about a month ago. We're like, you know, it's pretty funny because right now we're all the right age that those guys were supposed to be. And, you know, at the time, we were like 22-year-olds playing guys in their, you know, mid to late 30s. And we're like, it would just be funny, just go make it again. Basically, basically, we thought, the problem is we'd never have the time, but it was like basically take, you know, I think we made that movie for about $120,000. So take $120,000, add for inflation, and that's all we can spend. That's our budget. We can't spend any more on it, and see if we can do it again. You know, basically just make the same movie, all the same people, you know, same locations and everything, and just totally reshoot it. It could be kind of funny.
But in other words, but you wouldn't do, in other words, what did Spielberg do? Take away the guns out of...
out of the hand. Put walkie-talkies
and,
instead of guns. And, you know, it's like a movie should be just like any other work of art, where it's like, just because the technology's changed doesn't mean you go back and change the art, because not only was it a movie then, but then it's a piece of history, and it's like, here's what a movie was back then, you know. And if you constantly are taking your movie and updating it, then it's like there's no history anymore, you know. And it's like, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal.
It's really bizarre. I mean, I can understand it though. I mean, it's hard because, you know, even for me, now it's been 10 years, and I can go back and watch like the first season of South Park, and I just am like, oh my God, I thought that was funny, you know. And it's like now I'm like, oh no, let me fix that, because now I didn't know what I was doing then, and now I know how to make that funny. I know how to make it a better point. And it is tempting, because, you know, it's hard to watch that stuff, and what you thought was so funny back then just isn't as funny anymore, because hopefully you've gotten better, you know. But it's, you know, it is tempting.
Speaking of which, how do you keep fresh?
I really don't know, and I have every single season, I have this fear that, like, okay, next season's going to be the one where I run out, and we just never seem to. I think a lot of it has to do with the show itself. You know, we were lucky. It wasn't intentional, but we were lucky that we set up a show that was a town, and not just, you know, the Cartman show, where it was like, okay, it's got to be about Cartman, you know, and we don't have like. We can do a whole episode about the teacher. We can do a whole episode about, you know, the chef, you know, whatever. And it's like, we don't have to, we have a whole town full of characters. We don't have to say, well, yeah, but the 4 boys are the stars and we've got to have them in it somehow. It's like, it can be about anything we want. So it's very open. That makes it easy, because it's very open-ended.
Yeah. And when you were doing Cannibal the Musical, was there music that influenced you, and were there movies that influenced you with Cannibal the Musical?
Yeah, I think the biggest influence for Cannibal was just musicals, like Rodgers and Hammerstein style musicals, you know, and like Oklahoma and stuff like that. You know, it was just like, that was the joke to me, was let's do an Oklahoma but about a cannibal, you know. And also it was just that Alfred Packer at University of Colorado is a big deal for, you know, the student center there is called the Alfred Packer Grill, and, you know, stuff like that. So,
and they have don't they have like a holiday?
Yeah, there's an Alfred Packer Day, yeah. And you know, it's just fun. It's fun folklore from that area. I really, the muse was just being pissed off and feeling abandoned and that my life was over because I wasn't getting married. You know, and I really thought, well, there's the love of my life, and now I'm, you know, and I'm old and past my time. Now I'm 21. What else am I gonna do? So I thought, you know, Cannibal would be my big final swan song. You know, which I've sort of thought every movie since then. Thought this will be the last thing I ever do.
And how about today? Are there any films that come to mind that inspire you, or anything,
Yeah. Like, what was it? I just saw that. Actually, no.